I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. Oh hey, this ain't so bad. You just put the bones where they're supposed to be, and you tell the thing to assign weights to them. Oh no. Oh no. Alright, so rigging in particular had a lot of differences between what Dikko teaches and what we need for the purposes of programs like VRChat and VTuber software. So I'm just gonna quickly mention all the things you can ignore in his tutorial. It's still helpful for a basic rigging overview, however there are a lot of differences, and I'm just gonna try to really quickly go over my own guide of which bones you need specifically and where they should go. Alright, list of things Dikko goes over that you don't need to worry about at all for VTuber stuff. Number 1, you don't need any controllers or drivers, just properly weight painted joints. You can pretty much just skip right ahead to the third video in Dikko's series, and also this one. I didn't mean for that to be such a flourish with my fingers, but that's what Elite Motion decided to do. I personally never made a root bone, I just used the hips as the root. Maybe it's helpful for some things, but I don't know. I personally use 3 segments for spines because I feel like I remember seeing that that's how you're supposed to do it for things like VRChat, and it's what I've been seeing in other models, but I'm not entirely sure. You probably don't need more than 3. You can try for more, but I can't promise it'll be compatible. Hips don't get the side bones like Dikko did, just the vertical root hip bone and then the disconnected thighs. Make sure you parent your thighs to your hips and your shoulders to your upper chest like so. If you plan on using full body tracking in VRChat, the documentation says to have some vertical space between the thigh and hip bones. Hands don't need metacarpals, just do bones for where the fingers extrude from the hand and parent them like so. Naming things properly so Unity, VRChat, and VTuber programs don't throw a fit. I think some things are up to you, like whether you call your first finger your index or pointer, but if anything breaks, just make sure you name them how I have them set up here. The .L and .R things are important. If you run into any trouble at any point with specific bone positions or really anything, I highly recommend reading through this page, as well as pretty much any other page on the VRChat documentation. Even if you don't plan on using your model in VRChat, these articles give a very good overview of how your model should be. There really isn't anything in a VTuber specific model that isn't also in a VRChat compatible model, so pretty much everything they tell you to do is gonna also be a good thing to do for VTuber software. I'll have this linked in the description. Alright, so real quick, first of all, I am going to show you how to set up an armature. Editor's note, and expect a lot of these throughout this video because there are a lot of things to go over and many of them I forgot to add until I was already done recording. This is definitely the messiest video I've made so far in this series, as emphasized by the fact that I am currently interrupting my own interruption a day after I recorded that interruption to mention this. Which is fitting, because rigging in general is, let's just say it matches the theme. So because I'm a bit of a dummy brain, I am using a finalized version of my model for this tutorial. Yours is not going to look like this. This was after I optimized it by deleting certain faces and combining certain meshes, and don't worry about that. In all likelihood, you're probably going to want to start by adding an armature to your naked body base mesh. Not any of the extra clothing or whatever other meshes you have on top of it. And then later you can transfer your weight painting from that mesh onto your other meshes, so that your bones control all of them instead of just your body. I'll come back here and post again later on to show you how to do that. You could also, in theory, just go ahead and skin your armature to all of your meshes instead of just the base body, though that's probably going to make things a little bit harder to work with and troubleshoot, so I'd probably recommend just sticking to the naked body at first. And then once you have everything cleaned up there and looking okay, you can add the rest. Delete this one I have. And all you gotta do is go up, click add, armature, single bone. Bam. It may or may not make a category thing here. I'm just gonna drag this into here. Now we're gonna be positioning these things inside the body, so you're gonna want to, while clicking on this bone in object mode, scroll down here and click on in front under the viewport display. Now you will always see it no matter what. Now, I'm gonna press 1 on my numpad to go to a front view. And I'm going to go to edit mode and drag the bone up this a ways. This is going to be our hip bone, so you want to position it pretty much at the base of your character's body. If you want more specific placement advice, watch Dikko's video. I'll have it linked on the end screen here like I usually do. I'm just going over the basics of how to actually do this. Now, you can press Shift D to duplicate this bone. Bring it over here, grab the head and move it down to flip it around. It is now that we shall begin naming things. I'm going to click on this bone, click on the bone icon over here, and name it hips. Now I'm going to click on this one and name it thigh.L. That's important. This is my left thigh if you were looking from my perspective. Because I have it named like this, I can right click it and click Symmetrize. And now we have thigh.R automatically generated over here. And if I do something to this, assuming this is enabled up here, then yeah. So, orthogonal views are very helpful here. I'm gonna put this around there. Show you this now. We're gonna adjust these fine placements later on, but for now, rough placement. Side view. Want things to be about in the center of where joints would be. Now you can click on the head of this bone and press E to extrude a new bone, all the way down to the feet. Make sure it is lined up. Now right now our legs are actually completely disconnected from the hips. I'm gonna move this up a little bit. So we need to parent them. I'm going to click the bone that I want to be the child of the other bone. And I'm going to shift click the bone that I want to be the parent. And hit Control P. And if I hit connected, that'll happen. So instead I'm going to hit keep offset. And you can see this little dashed line here indicating that this bone come after that bone. It might look kind of weird because, you know, you got it like up there and then coming down diagonally, but don't worry, this is normal. Okay, let's finish off the toes real quick. I'm gonna go to side view, E extrude. You want two bones, one for the foot, one for the toes. Now remember, we are placing joints, so this orb right here should be right at the ankle. Wherever you think your ankle is, put it there, as directly center as possible. Now I believe you will likely want your toes to be completely flat, because remember, the way this is gonna work is whatever program we use this model in, it's going to grab these bones and move them around in whatever way it sees fit. Now, my legs are not perfectly straight, they kind of come outwards a little bit, so a program like VRChat does want to make my legs perfectly straight. What it's gonna do is it's gonna rearrange these things for that standing position to be a little bit like this, and then of course my actual model will follow suit. Therefore, if we assume that the default position of the toe bone is perfectly flat, and ours is like this, then it's probably going to lift this up, and then the toes in our model are also going to come up. So what you can do is you can click here, hit N to open up this item tab over here, and the Z-axis is of course up and down, so you want to make sure the head and the tail are set to the same Z. I'm just going to copy that and paste it here. Now if I want to adjust it, I can move the whole bone up and down. It's kind of like a illusion making it look like it's tilted upwards, but that's just because of like the shape of the octahedral thing. This should probably be a bit further this way. Again, roughly where the toes are. And of course, if your feet are slightly pointing outwards, you want your bones to reflect that. Mine are pretty straight, but I'm just going to adjust this a tiny little bit. Alright, spine. We need 3 sections: hip, spine, chest. Oops, don't extrude the spine like I just did that. You want to make sure it's going straight up, so go to like not that view, but this view and hit E to extrude. Or alternatively, you can hit it right here and then press Z so it's going only straight up. You want to make sure everything in the center of your body, like your spine and your head and neck, if you go here, the head and tail, the X is going to be set to 0 on all of these. They gotta be perfectly centered. And I want to probably go to a side view and adjust these to match the whatever curvature you have your spine in. I'm actually going to move these forward a little bit. You will likely have to troubleshoot once you get to actually skinning this mesh, which means applying the armature to it so that the bones actually move the model. To see where the joints best behave, actually these should definitely be higher up, because my leg probably bends around that point. Something like that. Then this should be a little bit higher. In my model, I have my hips set to be perfectly straight, but that's probably not necessary. Now, we're not lining these up with like the literal spine back here. We're lining them up with the center of the body mass, but just in a way that follows the shape of the body. This bone should be roughly where the bottom of the rib cage is, I believe. Alright, and then you can click this, duplicate it, bring these over like this. These are parented incorrectly because we duplicated this, which was parented to this, but we actually want this parented to this bone. So Shift P, Control P, keep offset. Alright, I'm going to name this shoulder.L. I just remembered I capitalized the names of all of mine. I don't know why I did that. Maybe that's important. Again, if you have any troubles, just do exactly what I'm doing and you should be fine. Alright, click symmetrize. So this should go up a bit below where the neck starts, and then these can be below that. Think of these kind of like your clavicle bones above your rib cage. They can be tilted upwards a little bit like this. Need to adjust these. This should be towards the center of the neck. This is probably too extreme a direction change. Move this back a little bit. You can probably guess what bone comes next. Put that there, put that there. I'm gonna stop going into super specific detail about this. I'm sure you can figure out how these are supposed to line up. By the way, if you ever want to do something like this, if you change this thing up here to the normal, you can then go like that, whatever direction the bone is facing. Keep that in mind. Alright, from the wrist, you want one hand bone going towards somewhere around here. It doesn't actually matter too much as long as the direction it's facing is right. Like, you don't want that, but whether it's here or there, it doesn't matter too much, because we are going to be disconnecting for the fingers. And again, after duplicating that with Shift D, we Shift P here and keep offset to parent it. 3 digits for each finger. You got that one, you got that one, you got that one. Make sure these are lining up with where your knuckles are. That's the whole reason you likely added extra topology there. If you want, you can go up here to your viewport display overlay thingies and click on wireframe. That should help. Just get it, like, you see that line right there? It wants to be right there. This was nowhere near it. And have this be roughly where you think the knuckle is. Oh wait, silly me. I should have told you to do a thing. Hang on a second. Okay, I'm gonna duplicate this a couple times. Those are not lined up properly, but whatever. Alright, go ahead and name this right here middle.L.001. Then, when you extrude a new bone out of it, it will automatically be named middle.L.002. You can do that with the index, the ring, and the pinky as well. Just save you a little bit of time with naming conventions. As well as for the thumb, again, 3 digits. You just want to make sure it's parented to this hand bone, and place these in the middle of the knuckles. This will probably take some trial and error, but somewhere around here, again, wherever you think the thumb should be bending from. Okay, and we're actually almost done the basics. I'm just gonna grab this and extrude a neck bone, and make another extrusion for the head bone. Now you might want to have your thing actually follow your neck like this, but the thing is, I can actually show you real quick what Unity is going to do to your rig. Don't know why the toe bones aren't showing there, but as you can see up here, this is the position your bones are going to be put in for a T-pose. You can see the neck and head bones are aiming pretty much straight up. Therefore, if we have it like this, then it might decide to yoink it back that way, and then it's just not going to look very right. So I'm going to set the Y value to the head and tail to be the same, and just have it be perfectly straight. Same with the head. Alright, switching back to my finished rig. There's a lot of extra bones here that I would not recommend you worry about just yet. Just make sure you have yours set up like this, with these names. Hips, thigh.l, shin.l, foot.l, toes.l, spine, chest, shoulder.l, bicep.l, forearm.l. Again, it's entirely likely that the naming of these don't matter too much, but if you run into any trouble, just name them like this. Hands.l, thumb.l.001, and 2 and 3, index, middle, ring, pinky, as we discussed earlier, neck, head. You should also have 2 eyeball bones. I'm going to duplicate this. Name it I.L, and I believe this one is important, or else it's not going to work in certain things, so make sure this is named I.L. Some tries. Parent it to the head bone instead of the neck bone. Now, the way you want these set up is a little specific and may require some trial and error. First of all, you want them to be straight up. You want this to line up with the center of your eyes. I don't think the length of these bones really matters much. However, you don't necessarily want it to be straight on like this. If you look at my irises, they are at an angle. So, in order for these to rotate around in the head properly, I actually want this lined up like so. So that they are essentially, you can draw a perpendicular line from the eye down to here, in the direction that the eye is facing. Let me make sure I didn't screw up. That's about the right level. And the head bone as well, doesn't entirely matter too much how tall you make it. Just make sure this neck right here is about at the right level for where the head's gonna bend at. Now, if you want to add a bunch of other bones for your hair, if you have like a tail or whatever, you can do that now if you want. But I'd probably recommend trying things out first, getting the basics down before you get fancy. However, if you do decide to do this, you might notice this is a nightmare to look at. So, click on this little running man icon and change this from octahedral to stick or wire. I don't know what I'm looking at here, so I'm gonna do stick. That's a little bit better. You can also click on this orange box and change it to like... Well, this doesn't make a difference when you're setting them to sticks, but, you know. Anyway, it's time to skin our mesh. Click on all the meshes that you want us to do. I got clothes and I got body, so I'm gonna shift click them. And shift click the armature last, and control P, and you click with automatic weights, and you give it a minute. And wabam wabam, if you click on your armature in object mode and you go to pose mode. By the way, make sure you are in object mode when you're doing that. I forgot if I specify that. You can click this, you can go, whoa. By the way, Blender is really bad with pose mode optimization things. I'm gonna turn on. Oh, my subdivision modifier is already turned off. If this was on, it would have been even laggier. If you're experiencing lag and you have a subdivide surface modifier, just disable it for a little bit. After assigning weights to your body base mesh, you're gonna want to try to make sure everything bends properly right now before moving on. Because, for example, if you bend your thigh and you think to yourself, maybe this point of rotation needs to be a bit higher or lower down, you should adjust that now and then reskin your mesh before doing any other fine-tune weight painting, because otherwise it will be annoying to do that later on. Mako from the future again. Past Mako is about to go over how to fix things, mostly involving multiple meshes interacting with each other while rigged. However, you most likely only have your like naked body base mesh rigged at this point, so I'm going to very quickly show you how to transfer those weight paints onto the rest of your meshes. Don't actually do it yet though. Watch this next part to learn how to fix things on your base mesh that look weird. And then once you're happy with how everything bends, like none of the fingers bend weirdly or whatever, and the pelvis doesn't look like too much of a nightmare, then go ahead and do what I'm about to show you. Okay, so you've assigned automatic weights to your body mesh, and you can move this, but the rest of the stuff doesn't go along with it. But once you're ready for the rest of the stuff to go along with it, what you're gonna wanna do is, this is going to be pretty much just a paraphrase from this video, so if anything goes wrong, blame this guy, not me. Okay, first make sure your thing's in rest position. You can either click this, or you can hit A to select all your bones, and then hit Alt-R to reset them back to the initial position. Then go to object mode. Click on your base mesh that already has the weight paint on it. Shift click on all of your meshes that you want to add your new weight painting to. Normally I wouldn't actually do the hair, I just do the clothes here, but this is just to demonstrate that this will work on multiple meshes. Go up here, go to weight paint mode, click on weights, transfer weights, set this to nearest face interpolated, set the ray radius to 5, set source layer selection to by name. I don't know what any of this stuff does. Go back to object mode, go to your mesh, go to modifiers. This shouldn't be here yet. Now this guy says you're not supposed to have any modifiers on the other thing, but in my experience that hasn't mattered. It might for some, I don't know. Probably don't have to worry about it. Add modifier, armature. Set object to the armature. Do that for all of the additional meshes you are adding weight painting to. And when you go back to pose mode on your armature, it doesn't work. Okay, the hair worked. You can actually go in and see specifically what just happened by clicking on your armature, shift clicking on one of your meshes, and then going to weight paint mode. If I control click on one of these bones here, oh, turn this off. Control click on this bone. This worked. It's applied weight painting to this because, well, it's all red up here. Blue means there's nothing assigned to it. And if we do the same by going to our shirt, click our armature, shift click our shirt, go to weight paint, control click this bone. It didn't work here. I'm not entirely sure why, but I'm just going to do it again. I'm going to get rid of this armature, click body mesh, shift click that, weight paint, weights, transfer. You might have to only do this one at a time. Make sure these are all the same still. Go back to object mode, go here, add armature, set armature, and if I go check the weight painting now, there we go. Now it works. There's a good chance this is going to be messy. This isn't going to be an exact like one-to-one transfer. It's basically, it had to take the vertex data from the body and apply it to the clothes. So like, not all of these vertices line up one-to-one. Actually, they pretty much do, at least for the shirt, except for like these clothing folds, because the shirt was based off of the body mesh. If I go to the body mesh, it's pretty much the exact same pattern. However, if you have different levels of detail across your meshes, or the topology is different along them, then things may not be perfect, but it'll do the best it can. And if you want to give a little bit more power to Blender in trying to determine how to best make things look good, particularly if you didn't do any special weight painting to your body base mesh, like if you just left it as is, what you can instead do is click on that, click on any other meshes that you want to assign automatic weights to, then shift click your armature last and hit Ctrl P and with automatic weights, and it's just going to generate automatic weight painting for both of those like at once, starting from scratch. You can also do this on a per bone basis, like for example, maybe you mess with the weight painting on your hand, so you don't want to undo that, but you do want to have it do the automatic stuff, but I will show you how to do that later when I get into the ass bones. Stay tuned for that. There's many ways of going about this, just choose whichever works best for you. Anyway, we're going to go back to past macro now so we can teach you how to adjust the weight painting on your model to fine-tune certain areas of your model. Alright, your job now is to look for the fucky bits. I can come down here to my knee and bend this, and it doesn't look too bad. However, we go up to the head here. I suspect that things won't be quite what they seem. That's interesting. One of the eyes moves and the other doesn't. Cool. You can press A to select all the bones and hit Alt-R to reset all the rotations. And now it's time for weight painting. Okay, we're gonna start simple, we're gonna fix the obvious things. So to weight paint, you click your armature and then you shift click one of your meshes, and you click on object mode and you go weight paint. Now, control click on a bone to access it. So here's the thing. The more red something is, the more that this bone is going to be affecting that area. As you can see, this foot bone is affecting this part a whole lot, and then it trails off over here because this is the job for the toe bone. Something you may notice on my model, which is probably because of all these extra hair bones I have set up, is that the head bone is affecting pretty much nothing. So here's what we're gonna do. I like to go to this view to make things easier for myself. I'm gonna go to edit mode and just click something there, hit Control L. I have a seam marked here for my UV, so that makes it a bit easier to select this stuff. I'm actually gonna hide all the hair. Let me just Control L, H to hide. Okay, so I've hidden the thing. Go back to object mode. Actually, I think I can just go to weight paint from here. Yeah. Now you may notice that all the things I've hidden are back. So okay. Look this up here. And now it is only affecting our selection, and also it actually hides the things now. So actually, if I wanted to, I could select, and in fact I will, select the face, as well as everything on the face, for now at least. So select some face loops on all these things, Control L to select all of them. I can also do this on the eyeballs, even though the eyes will get their own weight painting because of their bones, but for now, just to make things a little bit less weird, I'm gonna include those. And I'll get this too. There's actually one reason you may not want to add all the fancy hair bones and stuff yet, because automatic weight painting will at least be a little bit more reliable if you don't have all this extra stuff here. It's just that when it sees a bone right here, it's thinking to itself, oh, there's a bone here, and there's a bit of model right there. You want this bone to affect this? And it's like, no, but thank you. Alright, weight paint. Go up here, make sure you're on add or mix. I don't know what the difference is. And then set the strength all the way up. Go back to this mode because I need to find this easier. Set the radius a little bit. And give it to it. I'm missing the back of my head because this is after I optimize parts of my model. You likely won't be doing that for some time though, so don't worry about that. Oh, I forgot to mention something important. On your weight paint tool, this is important. Go over to the tool here, scroll down under options, make sure auto normalize is enabled. What this does is essentially, so you know how my face was associated with all these hair bones a while ago? Basically, if auto normalize is enabled, if I paint over something while selecting another bone here, this now belongs entirely to this bone. And if I go over to this other bone, you can see none of it belongs to that. And I can also demonstrate if I click here, and then I go back to the head bone. You may need to turn this off to select another thing. That part's now missing. However, if auto normalize was off, and I painted over that, and when I went to this bone still has that. We don't want it to have that. So just make sure auto normalize is on if you want to make sure when you add something, it also gets rid of it from something else. There are times where you will want this off, getting into deeper, more complex weight painting stuff, but most of the time you want it on. Anyways, okay, all of this is now on this bone. I believe I can hit R while weight painting to preview it. Yes, indeed. Okay, now there's some other problems, but we at least fixed that one. This collar is coming with us for the journey. And oh, I forgot to add my teeth and tongue. You will likely have your own problems that I will let you figure out how to deal with. For now, I'm going to add this neck to my selection and demonstrate how to smooth things out a little bit. Because if we rotate this now, looking at the neck, I mean, it's not terrible. Oh, that's terrible. You see that right there? We need to smooth that out. So there's a couple ways you can do this. Now, you have a couple different options for symmetry. You have the mirror down here, which if we do that, then yeah. You also, by the way, when you do that and you Control Z, Blender undoes like your thing here. If I click this and I click again and then I Control Z, it doesn't. It's then when I basically it Control Z's your option selection, which is kind of weird. You can also click this up here as usual, which auto enables that apparently. Okay. Oh, it's the same thing. I see. Anyways, so there's a couple things you can do here. You can go to mix and kind of go over it with a lower strength, or you can go to blur here and do a little bit of this. Now blur is very useful, however, it has fucked up my like auto normalize stuff more times than I can count, where like certain bones will own things that other bones are owning that they shouldn't be, and be careful is all I can say. Let's see if we rotate this now. Does that look better? Yeah, as you can see, that's getting a lot better. It's no longer like looking jagged there. We could continue to refine it a little bit more, but you get the idea. You'll want to do that on any joints that bend weirdly. And when in doubt, if you need to be very precise, which you will at some point or another, go back to your brush, go to add, or subtract if you want to. Subtract basically makes it so that if I take away from here, it gets added to whatever closest bone there is that it thinks belongs to it, which in this case is gets added to a little bit of this and a little bit of this. Or at least that's what happens when auto normalize is on. Every piece of your model should have some sort of weight assignment to it for your armature, and things should add up to 100. For example, let's look at the tail here. So red, of course, represents 100% ownership of a bone to that part of the mesh, and as things get bluer, they trail off. This tailbone has no effect on this hand, of course. And basically, this bone and this bone, at this like midpoint over here, at these vertices, this yellow and this blue both add up to 100. Or there might be a slight tiny bit of influence from this bone back here, maybe like a couple percentages there. But what you don't want is a bone that has nothing added to it at all. What you don't want is a piece of your mesh that has no influence from any bone whatsoever. Otherwise, this kind of thing starts to happen. When in doubt, you should at least assign a weight to the most base bone of that part. So like, for example, if I was like weight painting this from scratch for whatever reason, I would start by selecting the base bone here and adding all of this to it. And then at the very least, when I move this, you don't have any of those floating vertices. And then I can go over and I can, you know. If you ever see a part of your model that's purple, that means it has no bone weights assigned to it. God, there is so much to talk about. I'm gonna go eat pizza and come back, and I'm gonna hope I don't forget to mention anything. Okay, now, I hope to God that your character does not have some sort of fabric that goes down below their waist like mine does. Because let me tell ya, getting these bones to bend properly was not a fun time. There are several things that can go wrong here. The first and most obvious problem you'll likely run into is clipping, which I don't quite have here because this is after I already fixed it. But let me show you what I did to fix it. You go inside here, you may see, well, let me actually hide the shirt. Let me just select that face loop, Control L, and H. I already deleted several faces here. These used to extend upwards, like up to there, you know? But they would clip through the shirt whenever I bent it, so I had to delete some of them, but I had to delete not too many, because if I did, then whenever I would bend this, and you might still be able to see it if I go too far, yeah, you see, there's a gap there. So you kind of have to play this delicate balancing act of deleting enough faces on an underlying mesh so that it doesn't clip through the other one when you rotate it one way, but not deleting so many that it leaves a gap when it goes too far. But if it does leave a gap, and you have to delete those faces anyway, what you're gonna have to do is painstakingly go into weight paint mode, and, well, basically control individually how far these vertices are going to bend. So for example, this thigh bone is partially controlling all of these, but if I wanted these vertices right here to not come as far forward when it bends this way, I could give more ownership to the hip bone. And to do that, I'm going to make sure my strength is around 0.2. Oh, well, I need to be on add. 0.2. So the radius down a little bit. And just carefully kinda add some influence here. And the nice thing about this is if you have your bone in a pose, then you can keep it like that, and you can see like how this is going to act when you change it in this manner. So now we'll know when this bone is in this position, these vertices aren't going to come forward quite as much. If you're a little confused about what's going on, I can go a little bit overboard. Like if I gave full ownership to these vertices, then they'll go all the way back there because the hip bone isn't bent at all. These bones, so this will only bend when the hip bone bends. But obviously we're not going that extreme. Now this game of slightly adding and taking away strength, like maybe I decide that this is stretching a little bit too much, so I might go back to the thigh bone. Maybe get in here a little bit and let's see, where is the, okay, I think it's this one. Yeah, it's like that. So maybe I would set this to 0.05 and add like a tiny bit back to it, but not enough that it comes forward enough for you to see the gap, you know? You're gonna likely have to do a lot of that. Oh, we got a gap back here, as you can see. So I'm gonna select the hip bone and add some influence here until we can no longer see that gap. And this is gonna, it's gonna be messy, I'm not gonna lie. If there's a better way of doing it, I don't know how. Actually, I do know one better way of doing it. You're probably gonna have to do a little bit of what I'm doing here at some point with something to make bends a little less weird looking. However, if you want to do it the smart way, if you want to do what I should have probably done, instead of doing all that, why don't we just connect these two pieces of clothing together so that there can't be a gap and they can't clip through each other. Now, for something like this is a little bit easier said than done, because I didn't exactly model these two pieces of clothing to be compatible with each other. So like, for example, I could, let's say, get rid of this whole ring right here, and then start connecting things. This one will go there, hit M, merge. This one will go here. And, well, this is gonna very quickly become difficult and messy because these two pieces of clothing weren't designed for each other. If you're watching this video before you went ahead and did the rest of your modeling, my suggestion for you is that if you have different meshes that are going to be overlapping each other like this and bending around each other, try to make them like compatible with each other, having the same number of edges. You can see this very quickly starts to sort of desync. Like this line could go here, or this line could go here, but then this line goes there and this line, and then it starts to sort of lose because one of these has more lines than the other, so connecting it becomes a bit of a pain. And that's why I didn't bother, I just did the other method I mentioned. Either one will work, maybe there's a better way, I don't know. You probably won't even have to deal with this unless your model has a long shirt or something like this anyway. Usually shirts will end like around here or something like that, and then there's plenty of room for the glutes to sort of bend without intruding on the space of this other mesh on top of it. Also, don't worry if certain parts of your model are clipping through, like if your arm clips through your sleeve. Any polygons that you think you're going to end up deleting during optimization phases, like obviously if you have long sleeves, you're probably going to end up deleting your arms. it's fine if things like those clip for now. We can deal with those later. Really, you might want to consider not even deleting any polygons yet, and instead saving all that for after we start doing optimizations. I'm trying to think if it would matter, but honestly, my brain doesn't go that far. So, if you have a weird area like the pants under the shirt that I add here, I'll let you decide if you want to delete those now or later. But really, the best thing to do is to just design them so that you can actually physically connect them, and then you don't have to worry about any of that. And you don't really tend to run into the problems like this in other areas, like at the ends of sleeves or pants. You don't have to worry about like physically connecting those. It's just the pelvis area that is an absolute pain in the ass to work with. Where you might think, oh, okay, this is okay if it clips, I'll just delete these faces in optimization later. And then you do that, and then you notice that there's gaps now that weren't there, that you didn't think was gonna be there after you deleted them. But if you don't delete those ones, then there isn't any gaps, so you gotta redo your fucking weight painting. Maybe you should do it now, maybe you should do it later, I don't know, figure it out. I am such a good teacher. Really, the main thing I want to emphasize here is that the important thing is to worry. As long as you're thinking about when it's best to do a certain thing, or whether it might be a good idea to do a certain thing or not, or whether or not it's gonna bite you in the ass down the line, these are important questions to be asking yourself. Like, try not to stress yourself out over it or anything. And don't just spend all your time sitting there thinking about how to do something without actually doing it. But the more you actually think and plan out how to do something, the less likely you are to have to redo entire swaths of your modeling process down the line. Because trust me, it is very easy for that to happen if you're not careful. I don't care if the devil is holding you at gunpoint, you do not apply your fucking subdivision modifiers unless you have a damn good reason to do it. There's still actually a pretty good chance that your legs are gonna look weird when bending, regardless of whether or not you have to deal with that. Let me just see what this looks like. For example, it's actually not too bad. And if I bring the other leg forwards, yeah, it starts to look a little weird, like right here. So if I go back into weight paint mode, actually this is not too bad. When I originally did this, here, I'll just sort of recreate what it ended up looking like. Things were not really balanced very well, and there were like these weird divots kinda in the lower thighs. Okay, I'm actually kind of mad because it's like hard for me to mess this up now, but I had to do so much weird fine-tuning originally. Why is this working so much better just like out of the box? What the hell? Well, if things are looking stretchy, or like maybe one side of your thing looks like it's got like a dent in it over here or whatever, then you know what to do. You just gotta add things to certain bones in ways that make sense, but not go overboard or it's gonna be weird. Actually, I wonder if it's because of these butt bones. Hang on. I need to show you how to add extra bones anyway, so let me just delete these. Okay, I'm gonna just re-auto-skin this. Select that, select that, select that. Control P. And I wonder if it's still okay. No, it kinda is. Though this does illustrate another problem, in that my ass kind of disappears when I rotate my leg forward, and the shirt, yeah, it does start to get pretty ugly now. Like, the way the shirt follows it is just a little weird. So, you know, maybe I'd go back. Also, this whole area up here was a massive nightmare. I forgot to draw attention to it while recording this, but it's very, 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 very easy for the thighs and like the lower abdomen area to look very strange while bending and kind of implode in on each other, and that took a lot of fine-tuning of what I said earlier, adding slight influence, like trading between the thighs and the hips until things sort of looked decent, as well as experimenting with repositioning the position of the thigh bone. The head of the bone, the top part of it where the bone starts at, the position of that bone, like in any part, but especially here, is extremely important because that is the point of rotation. If your point of rotation is too high or too low, then things are going to look very, very weird when they bend, so you might have to adjust that as well. If you can visualize your thigh as like an oval, you need to identify like the midpoint at the top where everything's gonna rotate around, like right around there, and have that be the point in which things bend around. this might not be the proper placement, I'm just demonstrating an example. Trying not to mess another thing up while fixing another thing. It will be almost pointless for me to even like show a recording of this because it's going to be different for everyone, and it just takes an extended period of fine-tuning. The only advice I can give you is good luck. And add some extra influence to the hip bone so that the influence is not on these thigh bones, and the thighs aren't carrying this part of the shirt towards them as much. But then it leaves more of a gap here, so I gotta add more to this, and you know, nightmare. Anyway, I'm gonna show you a potential solution for the ass disappearing, and also something that'll just help bends look better in general around this area. So first of all, there's this video by Royal Skies LLC. However, I'm not actually sure if this will translate into Unity, or if it's just a Blender specific thing. I'll link it anyway, but don't expect it to entirely work for our purposes here. What will work, however, is this. I wish I knew what the source for this is. I just kind of saw it posted in a server. But in any case, I'll scroll through this slowly so you can read everything on here. You can pause whenever you want. Basically, we're making bones for the butt that are going to be constrained to the thighs, so that when the thighs rotate, the butt bones also rotate in a specific manner. Oh, I just realized something. This bone should not currently exist, and it should definitely not have any influence, so I'm gonna once again reskin my mesh. Don't mind me. So this is optional, but if you're not really happy with how your model's butt is moving in tandem to the thighs, or the abdomen, however, I personally didn't have much luck with the abdomen method here. It looks pretty good there, but I couldn't really get it to work for me. Maybe you can. In any case, if you want to try this, go to your Armature, edit mode, and we're going to add some bones. So, easy way to do this, just select the hip bone, Shift E to duplicate, bring it over here, set it to this side view, hit R, and then 90. Now I'm pretty sure this is the tail. We can check that by doing this. Yep, it sure is. You can also check by clicking on here and setting this to octahedral. It should be facing this way. So take this bone, position it roughly in the center of the cheek. Something like this, but you'll have to experiment. And I'm going to name this butt.l. Then right click and symmetrize. Going to parent it to the hips. Keep offset. Oh, I just parented the hips to it. Whoops. You gotta click the hips first and then this. No, that's what I just did. You gotta click that first and then the hips. Then the Control P. There we go. I always got that mixed up. Now, we could manually weight paint this, but that kind of sucks. So we want to use automatic weights instead. However, if we did that, we would mess up all the other weight painting we've already done. But I believe you can do just the one bone by, let's see, you select your mesh, then your rig, then go to pose mode, select your bones that you want to add to your mesh, then hit Control P with automatic weights, and it should have added things just to those bones. Yes, that's added, and it did not take away from this. This is different than when I left it because I messed with things, just don't worry about that. But that's how you add new bones and automatically weight paint them without messing with your other weight paints. Now we're going to click on... Okay, you have to be in pose mode for this to work, not in edit mode. So click on your butt bone, go down here to bone constraint properties, add bone constraint, copy rotation. Your target shall be your armature, and your bone shall be, this is the left butt bone, so we're going to do thigh.l. Well, you can see it's doing something. What you're gonna want to do is set these to local space instead of world space. You can set the influence to whatever works, but 0.4 is what's displayed in the image. And then, as this bone bends, that bone will follow. So I'll be able to show you the difference, because I haven't done it to this bone yet. As you can see, the ass kind of becomes flat right here, because these polygons aren't like, there's not really enough data there. But this one, it retains the shape a little bit better. It just looks better overall. The shirt does end up going along with it a little bit more, but that's kind of to be expected. I think I've given you enough weight painting knowledge to the point that if you want to try to fix something like that, you can probably figure out how to sort of do it. Maybe. Anyway, I am just going to repeat what I just did for this one. Copy rotation, armature, phi.r, set to local space, 0.4. Now, an important thing to note. This bone constraint right here is going to have no effect on Unity. This is just working in Blender. Once we bring it over to Unity, this is going to be gone, but there is a way to recreate it in Unity. It's these rotation constraint things down here. It works pretty much exactly the same, though the numbers may need to be a little bit different. This right here is just for testing purposes. Now, another thing I'm going to do that you may or may not want to, this and the last thing I just mentioned is completely optional. I want to see this ass bounce. So I'm planning on adding Jiggle physics to these bones once I bring it over to Unity. Well, I already have, but I'm pretending I'm working on this for the first time. The thing is, dynamic bones in Unity tend to want a root bone to assign something to. If I just assign the butt bones by themselves, it doesn't really work that well. So what I could do is assign it to the hips as the root bone for the butt Jiggle physics, and then exclude everything else, like the spine and the thighs. However, I remember reading about things can go weird if you do the hips as a root bone for that sort of thing. I don't know if it's been fixed or VRChat, whatever, but the better safe than sorry thing to do is to simply create a dummy bone. So I'm gonna go to edit mode, Shift D to duplicate. I'm going to parent this to the hips, and I'm going to parent the butt bones to this. And this will be named butt root. Oops, I accidentally just parented the hips to the butt root instead of the other way around. If you want to clear something, you can click on a bone, right click it, go to parent, and clear. Just click this one first, then shift click this one, then Control P. Your hips should be the highest parent thing on your model. They should not be coming out of any other bone unless you did a single root bone for your entire model for whatever reason. Remember, if you see a dotted line coming out of the tail, the smaller bit up here, that means this is a parent of something. If you see a dotted line going into the head here, that means this is a child of that. This bone will not have any polygons assigned to it. It's not a functional thing in and of itself. It's just an abstract thing saying hey, these two bones are coming off of this, so when I add Jiggle physics to this, I'm going to say, add the physics to everything coming out of this bone. And we want our own bone for that as opposed to the hips, which is the base of our entire model. You can use this method anywhere you want. I believe some people also make root bones for skirts, and I think some people do it for the hair as well. I personally just use the head as the root bone, and then I would make exclusions so that the hair physics isn't also affecting the eyeballs and the bow and stuff. But it's up to you. It's an easy thing to add in later if you decide you need it. Speaking of hair physics, VRChat has this dynamic bone limiter option a lot of people use, or I presume a lot of people use it at least, for performance reasons. If you want to optimize your avatar to have things like hair physics seen by everyone, try to limit the number of dynamic bones, as in bones with Jiggle physics, to no more than 32. I ended up with 64 because I didn't keep this in mind. Don't be like me! Alternatively, you could have as many dynamic bones as you want for your VRM applications, for your fancy stuff that only you use for VTubing, and then merge them together for things like VRChat. Blender, for some reason, does not let you merge bones and their weights easily, but I found a 500 view YouTube video with an add-on that does that. It's, I'll link all this in the description. Just be careful with it, as it doesn't seem to mirror correctly. I had to disable symmetry and do each side one at a time when I was combining bones. It also sometimes just got rid of certain weight painting, so be careful, make a new save before you do any of this, and check your weight paints frequently. Even if you're not optimizing for something like VRChat, you probably don't need bones going down every individual strand. You can see even on my go fuck yourself million hair bone setup I have here, I still don't have a thing for every individual thing. this chain is controlling these 3 hair strands altogether. Well, right now it's controlling more than that, but that's because this version of the model is for demonstrative purposes only. If you do decide to add hair physics, you can decide how many bones each thing gets. 3 worked pretty well for me, for most of them, but then like I have these really tiny spikes here that only needed 2. The more you add, the more detailed it'll be, and the more resource intensive it'll be as well. Even a little tiny bit can go a long way into making your model look more lifelike though. For example, my ears only have 1, but I mean, look at these things flopping around. If you're planning on adding hair bones and you didn't already do them, I guess I'll let you decide if you want to do that now or if you want to test out the rest of the thing first. We'll get to testing and troubleshooting in the next part. If you want, for now, you could just have your entire head just be pure red, including all your hair, and then add hair bones in later on when you're ready. Or you can try it now, or you can never do it at all. That's up to you. I feel like I don't really need to go over the tail. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just a chain of bones with the initial one parented to the hip. Yeah, you can go ahead and add whatever danglies may or may not be present on your model. Pretty straightforward. For the eyes, what you're going to want to do is, of course, click your armature, shift-click the mesh that has your eyes on it, and go to waypaint mode. Control-click on the eye bone, and you want to make sure this is completely red on here. It actually, like, almost did a good job of doing this automatically, but we want to make sure it is perfect and it has complete control over everything, because this doesn't have, yeah. Now, you could just manually paint in all of this, but I'm going to show you real quick another thing you can do. If we actually go back to object mode, click on our mesh with our eyes, go to edit mode. If you go down here to object data properties, you will see your vertex groups. These things have been auto-generated based on your bones. I have a bunch of extra ones here because I deleted my hair bones, so ignore those. But for example, if we click on the head here and we select those vertices, these are the polygons associated with the head bone. For whatever reason, automatic weights can only do so much, of course. We click off of that and look for I.L right there. Select that. Yeah, see, it's not really supposed to be all of that. So I'm actually going to hit A to select my entire model, just in case. I guess I didn't really need to, but either way. I'm going to remove these from I.L. Now if I click off of that and I try to select this again, it's not going to select anything. Instead, I'm going to Alt left click this face loop so it goes all the way around my seam there. Control L. And assign these to I.L. So now when I click select here, it's doing that one. And if I go to pose mode, it should rotate this. Yep. Just figured I should mention vertex groups at some point. There's other stuff you can do with them, but yeah. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the right eye because this one isn't blocked by the hair, and I need to show you something with this methodology of making eyes. This isn't too bad, however, well, never mind. Okay. This right here, this is the problem. And in order to solve this problem, we're going to change how deep into the head this is. Because if we were to move this, like, all the way back here, for example, and then try to rotate it, there's going to be a much larger point of rotation, because the eye is now circling around this right here. Conversely, if we move this right up next to it, and we rotate it like that, the point of rotation is going to be very small. So you need to find the right point for these kind of anime-style eyes, where it's going to rotate around and ideally hug this sort of lip of the eye socket as much as possible. You see, it's going too far out here, but it's going not far out enough here, so I think I actually need to move this a bit this way. And try that again. Did I say that way? I meant the exact opposite direction. Okay, that's better looking here, but now I went a bit too far that way. You know, some fine tuning. You can get the hang of it. You want to also make sure that it looks okay when it's bending down and upwards as well. That looks really good, actually. You can't see like the white unless you have a very specific angle there. And if I go up here, if you're looking at it from down here, this becomes a little bit more obvious. And this is why I told you to model your eye socket with this like ridge going out here, because this problem would be greatly exacerbated if, for example, if this just sort of came out straight like that, you're gonna start seeing the problem earlier. I'll trust you to fiddle with it. Okay, God almighty, am I done now? Is there gonna be anything else I forget to put in this video after I render and upload it, or am I good? Back to past, Mako. I suppose I could go ahead and show you what my actual final weight painting looks like, because the ears, for example, I set up in a specific manner. I made a sort of gradient for them. Instead of this bone just controlling like the entire ear and having it rotate like rigidly, I have it mostly control the top here, but then it fades out towards the bottom and the head makes up for. Oh, I think I might have messed up with my auto normalize. This shouldn't be bright red at the tip for the head since it's also being controlled by this. I guess it doesn't matter? I don't know. In any case, by default the head controls all of them, but then these bones only control like mostly the very tips. So it's like, it's really fun and bouncy looking, and all wiggly and wobbly and floppy. To do this, I use the gradient. I remember there being some weirdness with how this works. Oh yeah, you have to like go back to your brush, then set it to the thing you want to do, then go to the gradient. And then you can drag it down, but you can set the strength to be not, that's too much, but you do like 0.5 and that's too much. You like 0.2, that's, wait. Ah yes, I found the point where it doesn't work. Now I can try to teach you by remembering how to get it to actually work. Ah, found it. Okay. I don't know if I mentioned this before, I probably didn't, but if you want to be precise while weight painting, you want to set your brush to this last thing right here. It's one of these other ones by default, but that like smooths the brush out, which you may or may not want. If you have it set to this, then it's like a hard cutoff for which vertices do and don't get affected. You can see it's like going like that. But if it's one of these other things, it'll slowly build up, which might be helpful to you oftentimes, but if you want to be precise, you do the other thing. However, if you do it like this, the gradient also takes on those properties. So I'm going to undo all of this, have it undo this annoyingly, and then set it back to a normal thing. Then go to the gradient, and now it should, yeah, okay, there we go. Of course, I wouldn't want this to affect all of this, so before I actually did that, I would have gone in and selected all the faces here, as I told you how to do before, and these ones, and go back to weight paint, and enable that, and then do the gradient, and have it not work because I undid something, and then you click that again, and then you change it. And I hate this fucking program sometimes. Why is it still... Wait, no, I said the strength, but I undid it, so I have to click this again, and then I go back here, and then I set it back, and then I go back to, and I make sure the strength is what I set it to, and now it works. And it's as easy as that. But anyways, I'll show you the other, like, pertinent areas. The head bone, by default, is controlling everything on top of the head, including these parts of the hair that are not having bones assigned to them. But then certain bones will take over for certain areas, like this goes there, and goes down like that. That way, these three bones can control those three hair spikes. Also got some very simple weight painting for this bow here. I also use the gradient here so that it would sway without having the entire thing just like rigidly rotate. This one is rigid because, I mean, it's just a solid bell. That is for the body mesh. I'm going to switch to the clothing mesh now. Shift clicking and then... Oh, no, click the armature first, and then the clothes, and then weight paint. And I did a lot of fine tuning in this area because like the whole hips and crotch and ass were just being really rowdy. And this took a lot of fine tuning to get where it is, but I'm pretty happy with it. My life would have probably been easier if there was a clearer sort of bikini line shape here on the shirt, like there was for the legs and for the pants. However, because the shirt just kind of comes down like this, I don't know what to do. I believe I went over that in an earlier part, but it's functional. I actually just recently had to make an addendum to this because raising my arms was causing my neck to clip through the back of the collar here. I had never really seen it before because it's on the back of my neck, but I was watching a Beat Saber VOD of mine and then I noticed it. So I had to do some more very careful weight painting, just assigning little tiny values to where things should be. Okay, some final tips before we move on. If you have a drawing tablet, you can use its pressure sensitivity for a lot of things in Blender. For example, in sculpting mode, my tablet pen is the only way I got the multi-plane scrape tool to work with any modicum of decency. I believe you can also use it during weight painting as well to smooth things out a little bit. Also, I forgot to mention, if your character has long sleeves, there's a good chance you're gonna have to mess with the weight painting around the wrist area because, like, you saw in my first video, when I bent my wrist, part of the sleeve kind of went along with it, but that shouldn't happen. It can happen a little bit, but it's gotta be like uniform. You don't want just a couple vertices, like, yeah. Just rotate your hand, see how the sleeves move with it, and add or subtract weight painting to the forearm and hand accordingly. Or sometimes you might have to take it away from the thumb in my case, because the thumb was affecting the end of the sleeve for some reason. Just remember, if anything ever moves weird, it's probably a weight painting problem. If later down the line you go into Unity or whatever, and you move your character's arm only to notice something like this happening, then, well, that's because you missed a spot. Okay, I think that's enough helpful advice for now. I'm gonna go off. Blender weight paint is a fucking nightmare. The blur tool is pretty much a necessity to make anything look nice and smooth, but it will also ruin your fucking life. One time I was pretty much done with my model and I was just going through and cleaning up a few things, and I noticed that raising my character's arm caused a few vertices near the bottom of my shirt to stick out. I clicked on each bone attached to that arm trying to see which one was pulling those vertices, but I never saw anything. I looked online trying to figure out how to display which vertex groups a particular vertex belonged to, and found out that you can see under the transform tab at the top right of the viewport, except where the fuck is it? Were it not for the fact that I earlier realized certain functions, such as select shortest path, only worked in certain selection modes, and that I decided to go to box selection mode before clicking on the vertex here, I never would have fucking realized that those vertices were very slightly weighted to every fucking bone in the body. Why? I have no idea, but I feel like it was the blur tool because I don't know what the hell else it could be. It's possible that me having auto-normalize either on or off at the wrong time may have also contributed. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, that's weird. When I click auto-normalize on this, it doesn't set the hips to 1, even though all the other ones are at 0. Why is it doing that when all of these are... I am going to fucking throw my own head. Okay, apparently there's a tool that can do this for you. You just go here and click clean and set all groups, and then head to anything lower than that, get rid of, please. And then and it still doesn't fucking work. Oh wait, no, the vertex just was at 0.01 exactly, so I gotta make a threshold. Wait, no. I gotta make the threshold bigger and all of that one. And then this should work. Please. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Hey guys, here's the funny joke. I'm on the selection brush. So when I click on the subtract and when I click on it should go away. Like, see how that one goes away? So when I click on this one, it becomes stronger. But that one goes, but by the way, if you're hoping to have auto-normalize work with the gradient tool, you're gonna have to go fuck yourself instead. Okay, that's enough. Okay, we're done here. I was gonna go over shape keys, like how to make your character's face move, but I think I'm gonna say that for the next part, as that sort of starts to get into the entire area of finalizing your model, and there's like some decision making we have to make there that ties into the whole... things are gonna start getting technically easier to do, but more complicated to decide how to do. You'll see when we get there. I'll see you in the next part for that one, where we're gonna go over how to make your character's face move, as well as getting everything sorted into Unity. We're going to troubleshoot, we're going to optimize, we're gonna do the same export process about 50 times because there's always gonna be something we forgot to do. I will see you then.